Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering creativity. I'm Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Yuval Sharon, who serves as artistic director of Detroit Opera. Yuval, welcome to the show.
Aaron, always so happy to talk to you, and I love your book. If I haven't so far, it's a great,
That's so awesome. Thank you.
essential
Thank you
book.
so much. And I should share with our audience, I have, of course, as you know, geographically, the opportunity to see firsthand the impact that Yuval has, not only on Detroit Opera, our entire community, and our field. And so we're so excited that we get to have you in Southeast Michigan, but also for our field. And there are so many ways in which, so much of the work that you've been doing is groundbreaking and important to our field and to society. And so I thought, let's just dive right in. You have an amazing new project and production coming up, and wondering if you could share a little with us about it.
Absolutely. We have actually two big projects coming into Detroit Opera. I would love to talk about both of them because I think that they belong together as a kind of pair. We have the production that I'm going to be directing in April of Mozart's opera Così fan tutte, which is often translated as "We're all the same." Or they all do it, they all behave alike, you know? And I'll get to in a moment how that has turned into a production that is a lot about artificial intelligence and behaviors and that kind of stuff. I'm excited to talk about that with you. But I want to say that I feel like it's very much a pair with what we're doing a month later, which is Anthony Davis's tremendous Pulitzer Prize winning opera, The Central Park Five, which will have its Detroit Opera debut just a few years after we brought back his opera X, The Life and Times of Malcolm X. We're so excited to have Anthony back. And, these two pieces, they form a pair in so many ways, but one of the ways to me that they feel so essential that I can't feel like I feel like I can't talk about one without talking about the other because on one hand, we have a masterpiece from 200 years ago that we still perform and that we still lavish a lot of love and attention on, that features some of the most sublime music that Mozart ever wrote. But we're not going to just be slavishly devoted to a very, to a traditional view of what this opera is. Instead, we believe in its dynamic potential by restaging it and giving it a chance to have new life and new meanings, and ones that I hope will impact the way that we think right now in our own time in 2025 Detroit.
Right. And so, how is that going to manifest? And you referenced the connection to AI. So, bring us through from Mozart to AI.
Yeah, well, I want to say that I want to bring audiences directly in contact with the way that I hear Mozart, which is I think of Mozart as opera's greatest trickster. He was the guy that was always spoofing the audience, always fooling the audience, taking the audience in a direction that they think they can follow, and then completely subverting their expectations over and over and over again. Maybe this is best encapsulated by Don Giovanni, in which we have a lead character who is certainly not a hero, but sometimes you wonder what your own relationship is to this particular character. You have quote unquote moral characters that behave in highly immoral ways. And it's one that really looks at a society in an enormous amount of trans. And I think that his own music also constantly leads you down a path where you think it's going to resolve in a certain way, and then it suddenly veers off in another direction. I mean, I just feel like when we think of the movie Amadeus, for example, I think we think of Mozart and that kind of like laughing hyena quality of Mozart, that he was a kind of an anarchic, wild individual, and I want the audience to be connected to that notion of Mozart. So, in restaging Così fan tutte, I want to make sure that people don't feel like this is something that they can experience from the safety of a 200-year remove. That we can just look back and think, oh well, from our privileged position in 2025, we can see the foibles and the strangeness and the bad behavior of these people, thinking maybe we have transcended that behavior. But instead, I would like a contemporary audience to have that same shock of recognition that I think Mozart's own audience would have had when they saw this highly disturbing but hilarious piece called Così fan tutte. The way that it connects with robotics and with artificial intelligence, um, I could go on and on about this, but I will simply say that I don't want the audience to feel like they need to know a lot about artificial intelligence. They don't need to have studied the latest breakthroughs, because I think we see AI more and more in our everyday life. And one of the things that Mozart is really talking about in this piece is everyday relationships, especially when they're manipulated from outside. Subtitle of the piece is "The School for Lovers," and it is a kind of twisted experiment between these two relationships that the character of Don Alfonso tries to manipulate as if they are kind of machines. That if you press this button, they will feel love, and if you press this button, they'll feel jealousy, and if you do this, they will do that. There's a kind of rationality and a logic to kind of the impulsive emotional behavior that I actually think Mozart is critiquing in this. And I want to see that extrapolated to the notion of, let's say that the women in particular in this piece are a kind of perfect lover, that they're these kind of perfect machines that need to be tested to see if they can withstand the pressures of the men, to see if they can do exactly what the men ask them to do. It's a way of getting at some of the aspects of the piece that, if taken on face value, might seem outdated or might seem misogynistic or might seem full of all kinds of things that we don't want to keep promoting in our society. Instead, I think looking at it through this AI lens lets us get at the heart of this piece in a totally unexpected way, and talk about the kind of stuff that we're thinking about a lot right now.
And as you think about that, do you have a goal for your audience in terms of when they leave? Is there a way in which you want them potentially to be thinking differently, or having been moved in a certain way? Do you have goals?
I do not have goals, because I want the audience to get out of this experience something that's meaningful to them. And so I really don't want you to feel like you're missing a key piece of the puzzle, and so you're always just frustrated because you just didn't do enough research, Instead, I'd like to offer a wild field of possibilities for this piece, and to see which ones stick with each individual member of the audience. I see that more as my goal, as opposed to saying, I have a result that I'm after, that I want you to get. Like, it's not a murder mystery where it's like there's going to be somebody holding the smoking gun. It's actually not that at all. It's like, here are a lot of different ideas for you as you're watching this opera. Let them wash over you, and think about, if there's anything that I am interested in exploring myself and with the other artists that are part of this production. I want to explore the notion that there's something in this 200 that can tell us a lot about what it means to be alive right now. And that is what I'm interested in exploring. And that's more of how I approach opera, is not like it's a static, stable set of meanings, but it's
Right.
a world in flux, and it's dynamic, and there's these possibilities to see the relationships as they unfold and think to ourselves, wow, there are some things that are truly just human nature that keep repeating over and over and over again. And there's something about being able to articulate that I think gives us an enormous amount of understanding about our own time.
So, as you think about that, and then also your audience's transitioning to Anthony's work, is there thinking about people living today
Yeah,
and what they're experiencing today? Could you
absolutely.
speak a little about the relevance, presence, and or weightiness of, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, in many ways, it goes without saying to do a piece that is so much about social justice and about the near miscarriage of justice that may have happened with these five real individuals who were wrongfully accused of sexual assault and nearly were imprisoned for life or worse. That it shouldn't be a miracle in our society for justice to prevail. But this opera reminds us that those notions of justice are precarious and rest on us to fulfill them as citizens, as members of this society who want to see a more just nation, who want to see more equality, and who want to see, who look for ways in which our societies could be improved for everybody's sake.
Right.
And I feel like Anthony's piece is so much about that.
And backing out a little to kind of the more global sense and feel that you have, right? Our show is so much about leaders and
Yeah.
leadership in the field. As an artistic director, wondering if you could speak to how you feel about your role, not only with your arts institution, but for society as an artistic director. Is there a sense? Do you have a sense of obligation? Do you have a sense of desire? Is it a sense of creativity? Right. So you're taking a work that in some ways speaks to even the right leader of our nation and certainly reflects and some people are in feeling places of fear or others wondering how you feel as an artist leader and that role in society.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great question. And I think that as we're all trying to process this new reality that we are in, this fractured experience of nationhood and how we relate to fellow Americans and where this new leadership is taking us, this new old leadership is taking us. I'm not quite sure exactly how to phrase it. There is the way in which art needs to inspire courage in all of us, and I think that that's something we come to the arts to have for ourselves. We are actually engaging with what is happening in the real world around us. I think there is a way in which art can transcend the political, even when it is talking about something that seems overtly political, because it's about a human experience. It is also about the reminder that we are all brothers and sisters. We are all part of one social fabric. And I think that all of us deep down, I really believe that deep down in our core, that we want more justice and more equality for all people, for everybody to thrive as part of what America is really about. So when I look at a piece like Central Park 5, it's easy to get caught up in some of the things that relate to what's happening right now on the political landscape. And, Trump himself is a character in the opera because he is directly involved in the story of the Central Park Five. But it's not about his politics. It's not about tariffs. It's not about him it's way even before he was president. It's about his role in this larger system and who is suffering and struggling in that system that shouldn't be, that are unjustly suffering. And part of that is really to shed the light and to remember that we have our own responsibility towards that desire for justice. And I think that art really, to what you asked me about desire, it's like, I don't think we don't come to art to learn. You know what I mean? We're not there like we are at school, where there's facts and there's figures and there's this and that. We're brought into something that is emotional, that is about ideas on a big platform. There's something about talking about Central Park Five, and thinking about that relationship to everything that's come before. That art really gives us that position to help us understand. And I think that gives us such a broader experience to enter
Oh,
the real.
totally. I love how just you know, captured kind of this sense and overarching role that the arts have and that you feel you play in these unique times. So unfortunately, we are just about out of time, but I always like to ask of all my guests, this work that you do, obviously so rewarding. You literally feel the joy and the passion that comes out when you're involved in your work. But there has to be tough days as a leader, as an artistic director. And just wondering if you could share with, you know, so many in our audience who have their own leadership roles, are there any mechanisms or things that you do when you're faced with really tough challenges, or, you know, something, an obstacle you feel you might not be able to overcome? Anything that you do in those moments?
I mean, wow, I wish we had more time for that question because I have so many different answers to that based on the particular challenge. Of course, you can't be a leader without facing enormous challenges every step of the way. And I have to say that there's probably two things in particular that I turn to, and they're both different sets of philosophical kind of inquiries that I really respond to. And one is by the Buddhist philosopher Thich Nhat Hanh had a phrase that I always go to, and for a long time it was actually on my desk, but I would point it to you, but it's not on my desk anymore. I don't know where it went actually. Anyway, but a phrase that I think about a lot especially when you're coming into a disagreement with somebody, and I try to ask myself something that Thich Nhat Hanh said, which is, "Are you sure of your perceptions?" You know, the answer to that should be no. It should always be no. You know, and I think that when you come into any dialogue with somebody and you come in with that kind of mentality of, it's not that I don't believe what I believe, but let me just question. Let me question my own belief each and every time somebody comes to me and says, "This is wrong. This shouldn't be doing this. This has nothing to do with the opera. This is, you know, like, no, let me think about it. Let me think about it," and then go, okay. And sometimes I go away saying, even if I'm unsure about my perception, I still believe it's the right path to go. But at least I'm not coming to it with a sense of absolute, you know, a closed-mindedness to another perspective. And I think that is something that I try to practice as often as possible.
Awesome. That is
Maybe
tremendous.
for another time.
Exactly. Our next interview, Yuval Sharon, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for everything you do for Detroit Opera, for our community, and for society as a whole. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Aaron. So lovely to see you.